The verse for the day is Galatians 3:3, and it says, "How foolish can you be? After starting your new lives in the Spirit, why are you now trying to become perfect by your own human effort?" To give a little backstory, Paul, who is the author of Galatians, is talking to the Galatian people, which is why this book is called Galatians. It's a group of people. And the reason why Paul wrote the book of Galatians is because these people were starting to fall into the old way of thinking and following the law and thinking that they had to follow the law in order to be free. So Paul was like, wait, hold on a second. Remember what Jesus did? Jesus died so that you and I could be free. So why are you trying to walk back into slavery and try to become perfect by the law standard when Jesus has already made you in right standing with him through what he did on the cross, not through what you do? And Paul's purpose in giving this message was to just continue to align the new freedom that we have with Jesus into our brain and to make it clear that we aren't free because of the law. The law only exposed our inability to be free because it showed how short we fall and how we aren't perfect and how much we do sin on a daily basis. The reason why he said, after starting your new lives in the Spirit, why are you now trying to become perfect by your own human effort? I love this sentence because it is something I've lived out, and I think is something so common when you first start your relationship with Jesus, right? So when you first come to know Jesus, you have this like crazy moment of new freedom, new understanding, new perspective, new revelation about who God is. So you are accepting that freedom, right? Because it's new and you're feeling it and you're feeling yourself change. There also comes a time where in your walk with God, because you're spending time with him, because you're reading the Bible, because you're praying, because you're doing things, you doing those things are all great, right? But those aren't the reason why you have right standing with God. Those things aren't the reason why God gave his life for you. You're doing all of those things out of an overflow of already being loved. But it's easy when you're doing a certain amount of things and you're seeing a lot of fruit in your life to correlate the belief that, oh, I have to do all of these things in order to gain all the fruit necessary to live a good life. So you can fall into that performance-based, works-based mindset, which is, oh, I need to work hard in order to have freedom. I need to do all of these things in order to follow the life God has created me to live. But it's really not the case, because Jesus died before you did anything. Jesus gave his life so that you could be free before you did anything, before you were even born, which tells me that your works don't qualify your freedom. Your works don't put you in right standing with God. The only thing that puts you in right standing with God is believing what Jesus did, because once you believe, you gain access to the power, the same power that rose Jesus from the dead, which means you have access to the living God within your heart, which is now an opportunity for you to start to become more like God, to become more like the character of God, to bear fruit of the Holy Spirit, like we were talking about in yesterday's verse. And that's what happens when you start to spend time with God. The Holy Spirit consumes your heart. So your heart is going to start changing. Anything that's not like the fruit of the Spirit is going to come to the surface, and you're going to have to face it and deal with it. But once you do face it and deal with it, it's beautiful, because you're going to gain more fruit. You're going to have more patience, more kindness, more self-control, more love to give. And that's what happens when the Holy Spirit consumes your heart, when you do life with God on a daily basis. I just love the wording of today's verse. After starting your new lives in the Spirit, why are you now trying to become perfect by your own human effort? I've experienced this so many times where I gain the freedom from Jesus, from just being in relationship with him, and then because of that, I feel like I need to do all of these things in order to sustain this new freedom, which there is something to creating good boundaries, right? And living the way God calls you to live, following the 10 commandments, following his main commandment, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind. And the second one is just as great, love your neighbor as yourself. So those things are still key and need to be, But in order for both of those things to happen, you have to accept God's unconditional love as is. You have to know that it's not your works that makes you strong. It's not in your own strength. It's in God's strength that you become better, that you grow, that you become in right standing with God. And it's so easy as humans, and it's clear that God understands as humans that we forget. We forget that it's not in our own strength. And it's easy when something becomes normal and regular in your everyday life, it's easy to think that certain behaviors are causing that freedom to come to pass, which there's something to that too. But we have to keep the knowing and understanding that what Jesus did on the cross was every work that we've ever needed in order to be free. I think a super easy way to figure out if you've fallen into this mindset is to ask yourself, if I don't read my Bible, do I feel less worthy of love? If I don't take an hour a day to spend with God, do I feel less worthy of love? If I don't love people perfectly, or go to church every single week, or tithe perfectly, do I feel less worthy of love? And all of those things, again, are great and should happen. Those are things that do happen when you live from a place of love, because you have an overflow of love to give. You're not striving for love. You are just as worthy of love doing nothing, because again, Jesus died before you did anything. So we have to constantly remember it's not our works that made us right. It's not our works that makes us more lovable. It's what Jesus did on that cross. Because of what he did, we now get to be in relationship with him. It's that reminder that when we feel like things aren't working out or aren't going our way, don't try to get it all together in your power. Turn to the one who has access to all power and has the blueprint for your life and knows exactly the life you're supposed to live. Look towards the one who has all the strength necessary for you to walk out the life you are meant to live. Something God revealed to me in my quiet time this morning was sometimes it takes falling into this perspective in order to really grasp that it's not in our own effort. Sometimes we need to feel that tension of trying to make it in our own effort and knowing that that doesn't work in order to surrender and allow God to just love us as is, allow God's strength to make us strong. And that's when we remember and we feel and we actually see the difference of us relying in our own strength or us relying on God's strength, because what Jesus did on that cross and giving us the ability to be in relationship with him through the power of the Holy Spirit is enough and gives you everything that you need. So we just need to constantly remember that and remind ourselves it's what God already did that makes us in right standing with him. So surrender your need to work for love and remember you already have access to all the love you could ever need. Okay?